Hello and welcome to 18 WJTS Inform. In this edition of Inform, we're going to be talking with Tammy Lampert. Tammy is the director of the SWICACC, which is Southwest Indiana Child Advocacy Center Coalition. That's a mouthful. We've had a show with you before, but briefly, what does SWICACC do?
So, the Southwestern Indiana Child Advocacy Center, we provide child advocacy center services for Crawford, Daviess, Dubois, Martin, Orange, Perry, and Spencer counties.
Okay.
So if there is a child that is alleged to be a victim of abuse or neglect, then we will provide those services for the child and for the investigative team.
Okay, and to do this, you need a facility to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And you're quite proud of the facility that you have. You've brought pictures.
Yes, we have a great facility here in Jasper. We actually have 4 facilities. We have one in Washington, one in Milltown, one in Rockport, and then the one here in Jasper.
Okay, and the one in Jasper is located?
It's like over by the hospital area.
Okay,
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a close proximity.
Yeah, it's right in the center of town. So.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so kids are brought there because they need to be interviewed by police, which is kind of a scary thing for kids. Is that the right interpretation?
Actually, they don't get interviewed by police. They get interviewed by myself or one of the other forensic interviewers. So it's not as scary to the child to be interviewed by the police.
Okay, sure. That could be very intimidating.
Very
Makes
intimidating.
sense. Okay,
Yes.
So you have trained folks then that conduct the interviews, and then police are watching that?
Yes, so I actually brought some visual aids, if you will, today. So this is our center in Jasper. And so whenever the child comes, this is the waiting area, and there's toys and a chalkboard table. And so the child and the non-offending caregiver that brings a child will get to hang out in the lobby, play, get comfortable. And then the child will go to the interview room to participate in the interview. Okay. And that's one of our forensic interviewers there. While the child participates in the forensic interview, the team is able to watch from a separate room. So that's law enforcement, Department of Child Services, your prosecutors. They're able to watch that interview live. And then if during the interview they come up with additional questions, that can be relayed to the interviewer. And then again, the child would only be talked to by that one person in that one setting. Because otherwise, the child would have to tell their story to each one of those entities repeatedly.
And that's kind of the idea, is not to do that, because again, that can be intimidating.
It can be intimidating. It's really traumatizing for a child to have to tell their story. Mm-hmm. So then,
and they're telling a story about them being abused or harmed in some way. So that in itself is not a good situation.
Yes. Okay. And so the forensic interview is to figure out all the details that we can of the abuse allegation. And so to reduce the trauma on the child, they go through that one interview with the interviewer, as opposed to having to tell their story repeatedly over and over again. It also helps, people ask questions in different ways, and so the forensic interviewers are trained to ask just the open-ended question and not be leading or suggestive or anything like that. And so it gives the child the chance to account for everything in their own words, as opposed to somebody asking the direct question of, is your house yellow or blue, and their house is green, kind of thing. So, and this is like a close-up of the visual of what the team sees while the interview is going on. And so I'm not breaking any confidentiality in this at all. This is actually my son, and I did this presentation board probably about 2 years ago, because I had another presentation, and it's hard to explain what we do in words, and so a picture
is worth 1,000 words.
Worth 1,000 words. And so I explained to him, I said, Mommy needs to do a presentation for work. And so I'm going to have you come along to where I work, and we're going to do pictures so that I can explain it. And he said, okay. And then before we had child advocacy centers, if a child had to be interviewed, they would be interviewed at a local police station or at a DCS office. And so again, I explained this to him. I didn't think it would be real traumatic for him, because prior to this job, I actually worked in corrections. And so from the time he was in a little pumpkin seat, he was in the work release building, the jail, so I didn't think he'd be scared. Plus, this gentleman here is his uncle. One of the deputies is his uncle. And so I explained all this to him. So he's sitting out here in the lobby, and you can see he just looks so tiny,
Right.
And it was funny, because one of the jail doors slammed. And I don't know if you've ever heard one of the heavy metal jail doors. He jumped up off the ground, grabbed my hand, and he was like, oh my God, can they see me? Can they see me? And I said, can who see you? And he said, the bad guys. And I said, no, they can't see you. And he was like, they can see me. Where are they? And I thought in that moment, he knew exactly why he was there. He knew he wasn't in any trouble. It was just, and he was going to talk to his uncle. And if he was that scared to be there, I can't imagine what that's like for a kid who thinks they might be in trouble because they tell. Because a lot of times perpetrators do tell their victims that if you tell, you're going to be in trouble, I'm going to be in trouble, we're going to go to jail and all those things. And so this is the interview room, and that's him. He looks so tiny in the chair, talking to his Uncle Tim.
So this is not, you don't use this so much
We do not
anymore,
use this.
because you're now in a building that's much more comforting.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I always like to show the difference, because if we did not have our Child Advocacy Center, this is the reality of what would have to happen. Because you have to, I mean, the kids have to, they have to be interviewed. They have to tell what happened. And so if we didn't have the Child Advocacy Center for them to do that at, they would have to do that in a jail or in a child services office.
And like you mentioned, those kids are already in a situation that's really scary, or they've been threatened and they're under a threatening situation because you can't tell, don't you talk about it, don't tell anybody. And so that makes it even worse for them.
It does. And you know, a lot of times in the course of abuse, you know, we call it grooming and things like that, but you have the perpetrator who will tell them it's a secret, it's our little game. If you tell somebody I'm going to get in trouble and go to jail, or you're going to be in trouble, there's all kinds of dynamics to the abuse. And so we want to try and take down all those barriers, if you will. And, you know, we operate off of the child first principle, so the child's well-being is always our priority. And we want to do whatever we can to make sure the child feels safe and feels comfortable. And so that starts right away at the beginning of the place that they come to.
Now, when you say a child, what is there an age range?
We do forensic interviews on any child, which would be 18 and under. We usually do forensic interviews. They have to be at least 2 or 3 to make sure that they're verbal and they're able to communicate in that way. We have done interviews with adult victims who are special needs that function at, you know, a lower level of a child or something, because they seem to do better in that setting also. But the organization's primary goal is to just, it's all about children. So
if somebody sees something, I mean, how does that step go? If I see something and I know a child's been abused, who do I go to? What happens?
So we, like last show, we talked about how everybody in the state of Indiana is a mandated reporter of child abuse and neglect. So the hotline to report that is 800-800-5556. I tell everybody to dual report, which means to report to your DCS and also to your law enforcement.
Okay, when you say DCS, you mean Department of Child Services.
Department of Child Services, and then also to law enforcement. We had a case just the other day that it wasn't a DCS involvement case, but it was definitely a criminal matter. And so if you dual report, you're not going to miss, we're not going to miss anybody, kind of thing. But everybody's required in the state of Indiana to report to the DCS hotline, which is 800-800-5556. And so once DCS or law enforcement get the report, then they're able to contact us to schedule that forensic interview. And so then that's when the child would be brought to our center, and we would do the forensic interview, and the team would be there. And it just, you know, having the team together right there at that very beginning, the team can work quicker on their investigation. Everybody starts out on the same page from the very get-go. Research shows that, you know, by using a child advocacy center and forensic interviews, you're more likely to encourage plea agreements. It's, you know, can be the start of the healing process for the child that they were able to talk about that. And if they're, you know, if they're able to participate in that process, then they can also get services and everything provided for them afterwards.
How does the child get there? You said non-offending
caregiver.
Okay, that means
it could be, I mean, we have cases to where the offender was in the home, or it's one of the parents, and therefore the child is now in foster placement or in family placement. It could be that it was, you know, a family friend that was a perpetrator, so therefore the parents brought the child.
Okay.
It just, as long as they're not, none of the perpetrators are allowed at our center.
Sure.
So I should say alleged perpetrators are not allowed at the center.
And then the child is interviewed in a not entirely comfortable setting, because it's a strange setting to them, but in a much more comfortable setting. And I see that you had a board set up that they can draw pictures on, because sometimes that's really a good way to talk to a child.
It is. It's a great, you know, kids communicate in so many different ways. They can communicate with their behavior, verbally. A lot of times they like to draw things, and it helps them to be able to stay engaged also, giving them the opportunity to draw and and to redirect and stuff too. So,
are these interviewers, are they volunteers, or is that a paid staff? Because that's a pretty tricky thing.
So we have myself and then one other forensic interviewer that is paid staff by SWICACC.
Okay.
And then we do have some team members that are trained also who can fill in if one of us are unavailable. That you have to go through training and become certified to be a forensic interviewer. In the state of Indiana, we recognize Child First Indiana as our protocol that we use.
Now, I'm assuming the one who benefits the most from this is the child.
That is the goal.
Who's been abused.
That is the goal, yes.
Or maybe has seen something.
We do witness interviews too.
Yeah, okay, so maybe a child saw something, was never abused, never touched, never hurt, but they saw something that you need to find information on.
Yeah, we do witness interviews, victim interviews, sibling interviews.
What is the reaction from police and the courts?
Reaction to what?
Do they like having the SWICACC? Is that like, wow, we could never operate without it?
They do, yeah. I mean, all the team members love that we have the organization here. It's beneficial to them, you know. They are able to watch the interview and take their notes and start their investigation and all their process there, as opposed to talking to the child, trying to keep notes, trying to process everything, making sure that they're asking the appropriate questions. And, you know, our interviews are all recorded, so that helps in the court process too, because it's all right there on video, you know. The interviewer did a great job and didn't ask any leading or suggestive questions, and it's the child's account of everything that happened. So
now, you know, you need to be funded, and I know you have fundraisers throughout the year, but also people can help out by just making donations. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah, they can make donations. You can go to our website, which is www.swicacc.com, and make a donation. The thing that we love the most is because we're always trying to get awareness so that the kids know there is a safe place. If you do tell, it's okay to tell. You know, it's good to tell, and you're not going to have to go to a scary place. You're going to get to come to a comfortable site and talk to somebody who, like I tell the kids all the time, you're not in any trouble with me. We're not judgmental. We're not any of that. You know, we do our best to increase the child's comfort level while they're there. And so a lot of awareness fundraisers are fun, to where we had a church youth group that did for their summer Bible school kind of thing. They did collection of like coloring books, crayons, Play-Doh, little gift bags. And so then when a child comes, you know, especially if you have a child who's getting placed into foster care and doesn't have anything that's their own, they get that little, you know, goodie bag to take with them. Yeah. And so I know I just did a presentation at Dubois, and, you know, I said like blue is the color for prevent child abuse. So on Friday, you know, the kids could wear a blue shirt and donate $1, and it's not even about the money so much as it's about just creating awareness for them to know that there is a safe place for them to go to if they need.
And because, you know, SWICACC is kind of a weird acronym.
It is a weird acronym.
But, you know, once people know what it is, and thanks for doing the shows.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're going to have you come back again, and in some other shows we'll be talking about some of the things that you do when you make presentations.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Tammy, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Our guest has been Tammy Lampert. She is the director of SWICACC, Southwest Indiana Child Advocacy Center Coalition. And if you would like to find out more, visit their website, SWICACC.com. Thank you for watching WJTS in Form. We're local people watching local people.